Welcome to another episode of Mr. Mustache Craps. I hope you're having a great day today. And if you saw my previous video, you got to meet my assistant, Madeline. She certainly makes it a lot easier for me. And I suspect that she will be back in the future. Please comment if you like that idea or if you prefer not to have her assist me. So today's going to be just a general throwing practice, nothing special. I'm going to try a couple of different dice sets just for experimentation. We've seen how well I can do on the hard way set and the cross 6 set. So I'm going to experiment today with the 2V set and 3V set, just seeing if I can find any patterns in the numbers that I throw. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the 2V set. And let's see what happens. And that would be a 10. So the point would be on 10. At least if we were on playing a regular game of craps. I know somewhere it's written out there which dice set is supposed to be best for getting certain numbers. Well, I don't think my skill set has reached that level of accuracy yet. 4, 5, 9. And let's see what happens. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get a bunch of rolls so we can actually see a trend in which numbers come up. 4, 5, 9. Perhaps that's a trend that's starting, but it'll take a bit more data to figure that out, for sure. As you can tell, I have a pretty gentle throw. 3, 1, 4. When I throw, I like to have the dice hit around this area within a couple of inches, and it minimizes the deflection off of the alligator skin, which totally randomizes. If I throw it too hard, it'll definitely hit the alligator skin and bounce off. So that's my aiming point. And in my other video where I discussed throwing accuracy and how to improve that, which you can look up on my channel, 516, then it will, that can help you with your throwing accuracy too. I might do an addendum to that throwing accuracy video. In fact, I think I'll go ahead and add it in after this roll ends, just so I can pass it on. 4, 2, 6. In that video, I explained how using a string on the table was the same as how I used a hula hoop in my backyard for practicing chip shots for golf. And in the video I made about throwing accuracy, I took the loop of string and made it smaller and smaller as I got more proficient. 4, 1, 5. And then, and that was the exercise. Well, this time I'm going to do a derivation of that. And I'm going to put this small loop of string in my landing zone. And then I'm going to show you how another technique you can use where you just start close to have the dice land in that loop. 4, 1, 5. And then over time, you move back away from that loop. And this can be something that can happen over, well, hours or days, however your skill level is. But throwing accuracy, I think, is probably the biggest part of what we would call dice control or dice influencing. 2, 3, 5. And while I did have a monster roll the other day of 48 rolls, which I was hugely proud of. You know, was it skill? Was it luck? Was it both? Well, I think it was probably both. But proficiency in throwing the dice and having it land consistently in a certain end zone area, 6, 6, 12, that certainly had something to play with it too. I don't know if anybody's ever had just a monster roll just based on just hucking and chucking the dice. Wouldn't be surprised if somebody had. But I think more of the monster rolls come from those who use special grips and practice throwing. Another 12. And that one, I obviously fell short of my landing zone, even though it was on the line that I was shooting for. So it wasn't the prettiest throw, but it wasn't a bad number either. Oops. 5, 3, 8. So far, I mean, for the most part, it looks like numbers are coming out pretty equally. So I guess that means that I don't know what that means actually. But anyways, if it's a dice set that works and avoids the bad number, mission accomplished. 4, 5, 9. Get back over there, you little chip. All right. And since I mentioned monster throws, I mean, sure, monster throws are incredible. You can make a ton of money on one of those, but really, if you use the right betting strategy, even on a roll of, oh, there's a 7. Even on a roll of, 6 rolls or 7 rolls, you can still make decent money. Unless you bet stupidly large, you're not going to make thousands of dollars on a roll of just 6 or 7 rolls, whereas you can on a very large roll. But that's where your betting strategy needs to come into play. You know, if you're good for 6 to 8 rolls, use a strategy that amplifies that or takes advantage of that. If you constantly roll 10 to 15, well, take a betting strategy that works on that. But anyway, so let's count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, that's definitely not my best, but I certainly would not complain about that. I'm quite happy with that throw, and I think that the results of that 2V set that I was just using turned out pretty good. That would definitely been a money maker. So anyways, let me get the string and I'll set it up. So as I mentioned a minute ago, I took the string and I kind of made a loop. And it was at first a good sized loop. And from standing in my stick left 1 or 2 position, I would try and have the dice just hit there. It didn't matter if they went and scattered, but just hitting in there. And then after you get proficient with that, maybe 8 out of 10 throws, or whatever you feel comfortable with, you make it a little bit smaller and then repeat. And as you get good with that size, then smaller, and smaller. So today, I'm going to do an exercise that I use to really hone in on my throwing accuracy. Now, again, I'm not caring what numbers come up. I don't care if they bounce onto the alligator skin and scatter across the table. What I'm trying to do is just hit it within there. And the example for what I was just giving you to practice with, and you can use whatever size loop you want, but from relatively close, just to be able to go there. So it did hit the wall before it hit the table, but it was within the zone of the circle. So for me, this is probably going to be harder, especially with my grip, but that's an example. And then after you got proficient, Because if you're already good at hitting a small enough area, or somewhat close to being able to hit a small area, you try that and you just move back a little bit further. And then you throw the dice. In that case, I hit the string. And if you wanted, you can use a piece of masking tape or whatever might suit your needs. There was a good throw. And then you would just keep progressing down the table. And you could do this from the end of the table. And we'll see how I do. Well, I actually missed the ring on, or the loop. I missed that. What I'll do is I'll actually try again. I'll move it over. Even though I was close. Let's see if I can get both dice to land in there. And this is also an exercise of your grip. Because that was not good at all. But when you throw the dice, if you can get them to stay close together in flight, or a little bit separate, then they land. That's ideal. I did not do a good job of that on my last throw, but I do have a weird sort of grip anyways. I'll try one more time. I'll spend a moment actually concentrating and making sure my grip's right instead of talking. There. So that time, they both landed near the wall in there. One of the twos went off. Who cares? That doesn't make a difference for us, and the numbers totaling up makes no difference to us. So that's the example of another exercise for throwing accuracy. Another practice, which I'll get into in a future video, but I'll touch on it here, is basically taking the same concept, but taking different zones of the table to throw from, or to throw to. More towards the center, more towards middle left, or towards the left. Because we can't always get our stick left one or stick right one position that we throw best from. So it is good to practice from all different landing zones, and you'd want to do them from different positions on the table. So you would go from by the dealer, the corner there, over this way, and then try over this way, then over this way, and so on and so forth. And then center of the end table, same thing. Then the stick left 3, or where the curve is, on the croupier side, try the same thing. See where your results are. Now, these are something that will take many, 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 many throws to really get an accurate determination of how well you do, but that's another very good exercise. So when you get on the table, if all they have is dead center of the end, at least you know where to throw, what works best for you. So anyways, that's my throwing practice for today. I appreciate your patronage. Please like and subscribe. It certainly helps to keep my channel afloat. And you have a wonderful day and be safe.